The following is a chronological compilation of photos taken in the last
4 years, 1,460 days, 35,040 hours. College is only 4 years, a relatively short amount of time in comparison to the span of our entire lifetime. Somehow, in that 4 years, so much can happen. So much change, so much growth, so much preparation toward future endeavors, and it all goes by in the blink of an eye. Coming into freshman year, I was 19 and I was walking into a new school as just an everyday student, having identified with being an athlete for most of my life. I knew only a handful of people that I remembered from orientation, and had declared my major and dreamt of being a writer covering the New England Patriots. I struggled to socialize, never realizing how being an athlete had helped me socialize in the past. I had a roommate for about 4 hours before she decided she was going to commute, and it was almost 2 weeks into the semester before I finally got a roommate, and we had issues. I avoided my room to have some downtime to myself and spent that time wandering around campus and nearby areas. Growing up in a small town, there was never really much to do except drive around and explore, and that is originally how I got into photography. I had a camera with me often as I wandered about, and I kept to myself, but I did eventually get to know a lot of people that lived in my building and nearby residence halls. And before I knew it, my freshman year was over and I was one step closer to the real world. During the summer leading up to my sophomore year, I decided to make a somewhat hasty decision and spent a decent portion of the money I had saved on a DSLR camera kit, having felt that I had outgrown my fancy point and shoot that I had been using. Heading into sophomore year, I came to the realization that I had way too much time on my hands during my freshman year, and I needed to get involved with something on campus. I decided to try out for the basketball team. I made the team and got to know a bunch of wonderful people. I created a Facebook page dedicated to my photography and began posting my photos on there as often as I could. Taking Journalism 1 in the spring semester, it was when I really became more confident with my photography. Professor Marie Franklin required us to submit original photos with our written assignments, and she became aware of my work. I became involved as a photographer for the student newspaper, the 1851 Chronicle, doing photo assignments when they needed me. I was able to attend both nights of Runway 2016 and took hundreds of photos between those 2 nights alone. The photos I took of the fashion shows completely verified my somewhat hasty summer decision to spend nearly $1,000 on a camera kit. Before I knew it, time was flying by and I was halfway through with college. During summer 2016, I spent the time when I wasn't working, going on hikes and taking photos. I started working at a grocery store in the deli, working mainly late afternoons until close, which gave me plenty of time to go on morning and early afternoon adventures. In the month before move-in day, I applied for a deli position at a grocery store near school, and a week before move-in, I received a phone call from the store asking me to come in for an interview. Upon school starting, I began working there a couple days a week, balancing my obligations for basketball and class, but still found time every once in a while to take photos, especially when the men's basketball team played right after us. That is when I started to find an interest in sports photography. When the men were in the GNAC tournament, I took my camera to their home games and even drove myself down to Providence to take photos, some of which were used in post-game recaps for the games. I also got my first real experience with events after being asked to photograph Hospitality Day and Com Day at LaSalle. While at these events, I was approached by somebody working in the marketing department at LaSalle and was offered a position as a student photographer. Basically, they would send me to an on-campus event and I would be paid to take photos, and the photos could be used in publications by the college and on their website. I was assigned to help photograph the Torchlight Parade and was standing in the back of the pickup truck leading the procession. And before I knew it, the terrifying realization was setting in. I was heading into senior year. I stayed on campus over the summer leading into my senior year and continued working at the grocery store while also working at LaSalle Village as a server. I never really had too much free time, working long days, 6 days a week, but from time to time I would just go on a drive and would bring my camera with me depending on the time of day. Towards the end of the summer, I finally found an internship and started that midway through September. I was working under the sports editor of a local newspaper, and he was responsible for covering sports in Watertown, Waltham, and Newton. A lot of my responsibilities were to take photos since it wasn't easy to get a staff photographer for a regular season high school game, and photography was a skill set I had. I did do some writing, but most of my contributions were photos and some appeared in the paper. I also had the opportunity to shoot a Boston College hockey game, and it was given credentials to be in the camera pit. I had never seen hockey live, let alone shoot a Division I game, and it was definitely a cool experience. I was balancing a lot of stuff between work, internship, basketball, and class, and that was one of the reasons why at the end of winter break I decided to quit the basketball team in order to focus on things that would matter more once I graduated. I still showed support to my teammates and attended a few games to take photos when I had a chance. It's hard for me to comprehend that in a few weeks I will be graduating from college. I came into college with aspirations of being a writer and having photography as a side hobby, and over the course of the last 4 years, I have gained meaningful experience and have come to love photography to the same extent that I loved and still love to write. For that reason, I have been so conflicted that I no longer really know what I want to do for a career post-graduation. I'm going to take my time and figure it out.